I want to reveal something real quick. I've been secretly hyped for World Trigger for quite a long time now, because I was actually going to read the manga months ago. I was really going to start reading the manga months ago, but then I heard that there was going to be an anime adaptation of World Trigger, and I decided to wait until the anime comes out. Now that the anime has come out, I now know what the real concept and theme of this series is. For the most part, this episode lived up to what I expected it would do. I mean, it showed me the concept, what type of villains or enemies we should expect from the series, and it showcases our two main characters in the series. We have Osamu, I think that's his name, and we have Yuma. Now, Yuma is a little badass. I'm just gonna say it right now. From this first episode, he is a little freaking badass. And I don't know if I'm the only one that thought this, but seeing Yuma's character design, the way he looked like a little Nier. That's exactly what Yuma looked like in this episode. He reminded me of Nier from Death Note. I'm like, the way his hair was, his character design, it reminded me so much of it. But, you know, Yuma, I personally right now, he's definitely my favorite character so far from World Trigger, from what I can see from this episode. Osamu seems to be the main core character, it seems, but at the moment, he just seems to be a very weak protagonist from what I can see. I mean, he doesn't seem to have any interesting traits so far. Most likely down the road in this anime he might get some form of development to where he gets strong or whatever, but so far from this episode, Yuma is definitely making Osamu like his shadow. That's exactly what I can see from this episode. Now, overall, the first episode did the proper introductions to the concept. For instance, we find out about these neighbors. These neighbors came through the gates. Now, if you don't know what neighbors are, that's the exact, term or name to the enemies of this series. It's not a very original name. The naming of neighbors just sounds very weird to me. I don't know why they would go with the term neighbors, because, I mean, the demons or whatever these things look like, they look like something completely different than neighbors. I wouldn't want a neighbor that looked like a giant slug monster. I want to say it right now, I wouldn't want a neighbor like that, but I don't know. The naming sense is kind of weird, but besides that, I felt like the music was on point. I like the soundtrack in the series. The soundtrack was decent enough. I enjoyed it, and the opening song is really catchy. Out of all the songs from this anime season, not counting Database, from Log Horizon, I personally believe so far, World Trigger is my favorite opening song. I like the opening song. It's just, like I said, it's just catchy. I love it. I really love that techno-type electronic feel that the opening has, and it feels great. Now, the animation seems to be one of the biggest flaws when it comes to this first episode of World Trigger. Now, I knew for a fact the animation wouldn't be the best because this is made by Toei Animation, and Toei Animation is kind of lazy when it comes to animation. They are, for the most part. I don't want superior animation. I don't want animation that's godlike, for instance, like Fate Stay Night. That's like 1 out of a million, or 1 out of hundreds of anime. You'll get that type of quality in an anime series, and so I'm not expecting that type of quality when it comes to animation. Now, I was shocked with the amount of still frames in this episode. There was a lot of still frames used in this episode that shows me that either they're trying to save their budget for future episodes, for upcoming fights that most likely will be very badass or epic, or this series is under budget. I don't know which one it is, because, I mean, you gotta think about this from a different perspective. Toei Animation's handling a lot of series. I mean, what's that one? Majin Bones just ended recently, like last season, and then you had, Sailor Moon, that's currently getting animated, and the freaking Sailor Moon animation looks freaking crazy, and then One Piece recently with all its animation that's been pretty fucking amazing for One Piece, has been awesome in recent weeks. So I think Toei Animation's using all their budget on One Piece and Sailor Moon at the moment, and so I felt like all the leftover budget's going to World Trigger when it comes in terms of animation. So besides that, I felt like the episode got me intrigued. I am definitely hyped for this series, especially from the introduction of it, and finding out that plot twist at the end of this episode with Yuma being a neighbor. I'm like, he came through the gate, supposedly from what we can find out at the end of this episode. He came through the gate, and he is a neighbor. Now, from what we can see is not all neighbors are bad or mindless, because the neighbors we saw, the very few neighbors we saw in this episode that was introduced, they seem to be killing machines, killing humanity and stuff like that. And then you had this organization called Border have to, I guess, form to hunt down the neighbors and stop them from killing people. So we find out, since technically Yuma is a neighbor, that not all neighbors are evil. So that's a big plot twist right there, and it makes me intrigued to find out, since he is one of our main characters, Yuma is, then we're going to get an inside perspective of what these creatures are. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. How'd you feel about this first episode of World Trigger? Seems to be a very promising little series. I mean, I wouldn't really judge it by the animation. I mean, if you're looking for animation, you'll definitely be disappointed. But I felt like the series needs more attention. It definitely needs more attention because I have been wanting to actually read this manga series for a long time, but I was waiting for the anime. And the anime, it met my expectations for the episode. It definitely met my expectations, and I can't wait to see what happens next week. So, you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.